Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being on today's Legacy Collaborative Monday Reset. We are so excited. I had the amazing opportunity to meet Erica Lemarr while I was on a trip in Texas. I went to the Mom World Live event before I went to a few other events that you all know I attended because we talked about it last week. And Erica is one of the ones that she and I just kind of hit it off right away. And when you get to know more about her, you'll understand why. I love her so much. And we're just super lucky and fortunate to have her be a part of this. And she is in the Legacy Collaborative Network, but also she's just accomplished a lot in her life and she's quite an inspiration, as many of you are. So I can't wait for you to learn from her personal journey, her habits, and also the amazing business that she has. And I promise you'll have takeaways that are going to be things that you can incorporate in your personal everyday life as well as your business that will make you more money. So, congrats to you for making this hour a priority and being fully present. I promise you're going to want to take notes. And also, for everyone who chose to be a part of this live, you will get the notes. And also, I will be sharing the recording. So, Erica, thank you so much for being here. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So, I would love to just start off with, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Yes. So I am somebody that's, just like everybody here, I've had to work for everything I have today. I don't come from money. I don't come from an educated family. And as a matter of fact, I grew up with a lot of identity crisis, broken family, lots of trials that happened. But I think the biggest thing that helped me shift my entire life from where I didn't want to be to where I wanted to be was shifting into having a servant mindset. So as soon as I removed myself from any outcome and I just thought about the person I was trying to serve and the message I was trying to give and what I could do to help whoever out there just to get to the next level, that's when everything started to catapult for me. And, also, and this is kind of embarrassing for me to even say, but I grew up and still have a learning disability. So it takes a lot longer for me to learn and retain information. But I think the number one thing that's just helped me get through that is grit. It might take me a little bit longer to learn and understand something and retain it, but I won't quit. And you can't beat somebody who doesn't stop.
I would agree with that. It's so interesting because I didn't hear you say it exactly that way when I was getting to know a little bit more about you and we got to spend time together. And one of the things that my mom actually had on the wall was the poem Don't Quit as I was growing up. So to hear that be such a similarity in our path and for that to be something that you focus on every single day is so awesome.
Thank you.
So, share a little bit about the journey of what that looked like for you of growing up with a learning disability and what were some of the thinking habits and things that you put in place for you to overcome that and to lean into maybe even how it can be a benefit or ways that you have been able to use it to help people?
So, the number one way, if I have to go, going back to my childhood, so growing up, I was often told that I was just not going to go anywhere fast. And so when you hear that and you have adults saying that to you, that becomes your new voice, that becomes your identity. So it got to a point where, in high school, I made the final decision that I didn't want to be who everyone said I was going to be. And so the number one thing I did was I looked at my wardrobe. I read this article in I think it was Vogue magazine, and it talked about you become who you are by changing how you feel, and how you change how you feel is what you see on the outside. And so I looked at my entire wardrobe. I spent all the money that I saved up from my dog walking business that I started at 10 when I was in Japan, and I changed my entire wardrobe from, I was in that little goth stage from like 15 to 16 years old, all to business attire because I knew I wanted to be in business. I didn't know how I was going to do it because I had bad grades. I couldn't retain information, but I just knew I wanted to do something different. So I changed the way I looked. And then I walked around like that. And that quite literally changed the way I saw myself. And then little by little, week by week, I discovered that I could do things if I said I wanted to. Um, the biggest shift in my life happened when I was a young adult and I was going down a path of nowhere fast. And it actually happened. What happened was I became addicted to drugs and losing myself. My biggest savior was my husband. And he was the only person that ever believed in me. And I still don't even know to this day what he saw in me, but he told me that he's like, Erica, I believe you. I believe whatever you want to do, you can do. So I got clean, started dating him, and then, you know, 2 weeks, 2 weeks into dating, we get married, and then I find out, I'm pregnant with our son. My son, finding that out, that really just, realizing that it was no longer about me anymore, I knew that I had to start making different pattern, having different ways of thinking because I was really had to learn to leave my former life behind. I'm staying home with our son and we start going through financial crisis and I'm thinking like, well, I've got to do something. Now, I start rage applying. So I have an interview at this large cable company and they call me in. They say, well, we'd like you to do an inbound sales position. I'm thinking like, well, I've never had a formal sales job before. So I go in and I have a lot of anxiety about it because I'm thinking like, well, all the thoughts of my childhood come back. I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? I can't retain this script. I can't retain the information. There was 50 codes that we had to memorize. Well, it was easier to memorize it, but they had a piece of paper on it. So I just went to work. I just did what I did and I knew how to do, which was study really hard. And it took me about 3 months to really understand the program. But by 6 months, after just listening to people and really honing in on my people skills, I became one of the top salespeople in the entire at that branch at the cable company. And within 9 months, I became one of the top salespeople in the entire company on West Coast, Middle, and East Coast for that company. And then, so they rolled out a new program. They rolled out a new product, I should say, which was a home security product. And of course, nobody knew how to sell it because it was a brand new product. So I did what I did best. I just studied really hard to figure out how I can pitch this to the consumer. And within 2 months, I became the number one salesperson in the country for that product. Um, so the managers and supervisors and directors approached me and asked me to create a training program for this product. And I was thinking like, yes, of course, I'd be happy to. I just wanted to serve and be a servant to people. But when I handed them the script on exactly what I did and would say to sell the product, I asked to be a part of it and they told me that they didn't want me to be a part of it. So I just found that that was not going to work for me. So I immediately left and I was going to go into real estate. Of course, I didn't have a plan, but this is the number one thing I think that really catapulted my success in this new industry was when I went into the real estate industry, I had no savings. I had, of course, didn't even have my license. I had no knowledge of even selling real estate. All I knew was I have good people skills and I know how to study the way I study. So I quit that job, even though I was making, six figures, and I went into real estate. But the number one thing that helped me catapult my career in the real estate industry was burning the boat. I gave myself no other option. So, first year I got into real estate, I did what I did best. I studied the crap out of everything I needed to do and just honed in on my people skills and did the basic work, followed the steps I was told. And my first year, I sold 30 homes. And then every year after that, just catapulted, more success, higher volumes in sales. And it helped me get to where I am today.
Okay, there's so much to unpack there, and thank you. What a gift you are, and how amazing your story is that you had a guy who saw so much in you that he helped you believe the truth about yourself.
You. Yes. Yeah. A lot of my credit goes to my husband. And, if you ever hear somebody who says, they're self-made, it's a lie. Nobody is self-made. Everybody gets help from somebody and you can't do it by yourself. And he was the one that, helped me get there. Even today, my husband doesn't mind being in the background of my success and he's just my biggest cheerleader.
I love that so much. It takes a strong man to be supportive of an amazing woman like yourself. So, I want to dive into a couple of things. When you say that, you helped create the training and you helped become number one at selling the product in the previous company, what did that mean for you when they didn't want you to be a part of helping with the very thing that you equipped them to be so successful in? Like, how did you feel when they did not want you to be a part of that?
Yeah, I was shocked. I was shocked. I was slightly insulted, but more than anything, I was just disappointed. And then that's when I realized I really truly was a number. And so I wanted to go somewhere where I could build something of my own because, of course, I didn't own anything and I wasn't building my name, my brand, I was building theirs. So a lot of feelings came into play, but I made that shift fast. So I made it quick. I burned the boat as fast as I could, and then I gave myself no other option but to win at the next game.
I love it. I love that mindset shift. I feel like everyone has disappointments or things that don't go as planned. And the speed at which the resilience happens is so vital in how quickly people recover, get to the next level, build to the next challenge. And I just love to hear that in you. It's such a gift to practice that, and you practiced it over your entire journey. So how many years ago was that you started in real estate?
That was 8 years ago.
8 years ago. Perfect. And when you say, I mean, I'm sure when, just like I am, when everyone on here hears you say that you sold 30 homes in your first year from like the very first day you got your license, that is amazing. And
Thank
I
you.
know that you're super proud of yourself. When you say that you just went all in on the basics, what did every day look like for you?
Every day, to be honest, it's just doing the boring work. It's doing the boring work that's not sexy that nobody sees. It's calling your database. It's making touch points. It's going out and following up with leads because I joined a team because, one of my mentors told me the best way to do it is to do it with somebody who's already got the map. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So, but it turns out majority of those deals were not the teams, they were mine because I was just scrubbing and going through my database and I was just, I'm just showing up to people. And on social media, I made myself look busy, even though I wasn't. You know, I would always tell myself, it's, real estate, hiring a realtor or a professional is like hiring a surgeon. Would you ever want to hire the one that's always available? The answer is no. So, what can you do to make yourself look busy and then learning at the same time? So, I would go to all these new construction communities and I would pester the superintendents and ask questions, and I would just take in as much knowledge as I could. And a lot of that is because I had to ask the same question several times because I have a hard time retaining information. And I used to be ashamed of saying that. I'm not ashamed of saying it anymore because it is my truth. And I think the fastest way to growth is acceptance. Uh, so yeah, I would just say I made myself look busy. I would continue to learn. My number one objective was to learn something new every single day, and which led me to creating this new program that I was on NBC News a couple days ago talking about a book that I co-authored and talking about a program that I'm releasing to teach women how to leverage their business on social media. And the number one reason why is because I recently had to fire clients, and I'm so glad I did. The only reason why I was able to fire clients is because I have a surplus of clients lined up. But they were both men who were unwilling to respect my marital boundaries. And I keep thinking, if I am having this problem, I know other women are. And here is where this is where my servant's heart comes in. It's really not about me anymore. It's about the single mom out there who has no option but to take the piece of business that she has no to take that piece of business. Where I want to come in is I want to teach people how to choose the business they want to work with versus working with every piece of business that chooses them. And sometimes, if done wrong, that can be the last piece of business they ever do.
Thank you. I know that that is very real and raw for you to share that. And I think that even though that is the specific way of, not alignment business that you have or business out of alignment with your values, it certainly is something that happens for everyone. And even though it could look differently, right? And right now it could look like people who don't want to price their home properly because they're sitting for a long time and they don't want to take your advice. It could look like people that you just spend a lot of money on helping or a lot of time on helping because they don't want to accept your guidance as a professional. And I mean, I just love that you are equipping women specifically because of your experience in how to protect themselves, deal with people that are in alignment with their values. And I would challenge every single person on here, if you haven't considered what are the top 5 values of the people that you would love working with and that are going to be in alignment with the business you dream of having, you need to be crystal clear on that and run every decision through that lens. And it is possible to do that. And you are right here as a living, breathing example that it is possible to do that. And I love your servant's heart. And every single person on here can consider, based on their personal journey, how do they come from that servant perspective and create resources and guidance for their clients based on what their journey has looked like.
Love it.
So, can you share with us, and you've already alluded to it a bit because of your book, can you share the name of your book and where they can purchase it if they have interest?
Yes. So it just hit the number one bestseller for the women's and business department field on
Category.
Amazon, but it's called Slaying Vegas. So I co-authored it with 21 other powerful entrepreneurial women here in Las Vegas. If you go in and you read some of these stories, it's beautiful. All these women were given nothing in their life and they created something beautiful. And they really tapped into their artisan soul and made something for everyone else.
I love that. I can't wait to read it. I'm definitely going to be ordering it today.
Good. It's
Because
a
I've
good
been kind
book.
of slammed with my daughter's birthday over the weekend. So thank
I
you
love
for
that.
writing that as a gift. Um, when you think about that first year and the 30 closings, if there's someone on here that's like, gosh, I really need to have 30 closings in the next year. I know you said you just did the boring work and you just got up and you learned something new every day. So if you were to say, like, here are the top 3 things you would just keep in mind every day for you to go back and have 30 closings again in your first year, what would they be?
Not being afraid to contact people. Not number one, don't be afraid to contact them, especially if they raise their hand, or even if they raise a finger. Don't be afraid to contact them. Follow up is key. It's the follow up is even more now, but back then I would follow up with somebody probably about 6 to 7 times before we finally went out to go see the property or to get them to the lender to pre-approve. The last part is speaking like an authority figure. Even though it was my first year and I really didn't know what I was doing, I mastered tonality and I mastered the way I would deliver the information, and I had a lot of emotional resistance. And I think that really helped catapult me into that next level is I told myself, I wanted to communicate and behave like an attorney. And how do attorneys behave? Well, they behave very professional, at least the good ones. They behave very professional, they're very competent, they're a master of their field, and that's how I wanted to show up. And that's all I did. Those are the number one, those are actually the top 3 things that I did outside of, following through and doing the work and showing the houses. But everything else, you know, you learn as you go. Nobody ever knows anything. And even fact, even though I've done a bunch of transactions, I'm learning every day. Nothing. Sometimes the two transactions are never the same. So there's just one quote I love and I'll never forget. Your brain is just like a parachute. It only works when it's open. So when you can open your mind to different ways of things working and listening to other people and what works for them, it is magical the different things that you can take in. And that is what I did also. So, the fourth thing I did was I had a very open mind. I never thought that I knew it all. And I was willing to learn from everybody who knew more than me.
I love that. And one of the things I hear in a pattern for you is when you rewind all the way back to the beginning of this conversation and you think about how you chose to show up when you were younger and how you chose to see yourself, you chose who you were going to be, and then you lived into the actions of who you were going to be, right? So you chose in advance, this is who I'm going to become. And then you
Yes.
chose to dress like her. You chose to act like her. And you chose to start being her today. Not one day, not someday. You chose to start being her today. And
Yes, absolutely.
I just love how that multiplied your goals in your life, even though you navigated really, really challenging things. And I'm so proud. And I believe that that contributed to you being a multiplier for the people that you're serving through everything you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. There's even days where I show up and I have imposter syndrome, and it even happened a couple days ago where I was showing up in stories and, facts tell, stories sell. So the stories in your Instagram and how Instagram works is it's an interest-based platform. So people will go to your stories to learn who you are and get to know you, and then you will show facts or I guess, stronger objective things in your reels to pull people in. So reels would be considered outbound content. Stories would be considered inbound content. On your inbound content, you're supposed to tell stories to sell. And then your outbound content, which is your reels, will bring people in. You're supposed to bring them in with fact. But I felt like a phony a couple days ago, even after everything, the book launch party, us hitting number one, being on NBC News. I was supposed to show up and tell a story about a new client that I brought on, who's one of them is a pilot, another is a big surgeon here in Las Vegas. And I thought, like, who am I to talk about signing on these big clients? And then I just remembered, no, I am her. I've built her. This is who I am. More importantly, whenever I have those moments of imposter syndrome, I think about the person I needed when I was 12 years old, and it is her. So, and like I said, nobody ever has it figured out. And everybody, even the billionaires, the people that have big, large teams, we're all figuring it out every single day.
Thank you. I think that's such a great reminder. Thank you for putting it that way. I believe every single person who chose to be here today can see themselves in this conversation. So thank you. When you chose, and you've already hit on this a little bit of how Instagram works, I know that's super helpful for the people on here as everyone's being very on some part of their journey of getting themselves out there more consistently on social media to ensure that they are moving right along with that as a part of their business strategy versus allowing it to leave them behind. So when you transition from a traditional real estate model to building through social media, how did you do that and what decisions did you make?
Well, I'm sure, like everybody here, I hated the way I sounded. I hated the way I looked. In the beginning, I made it all about me. And I first started on YouTube, which is where I get a big bulk of my business, but it was really difficult to transition to social media. But I knew that it was going to be the best return on investment because done right, it now passively prospects for you. And I can say the same for Instagram, TikTok, if you optimize it right, and definitely YouTube. I was tired of spending thousands of dollars on Zillow leads. I was tired of buying my business and I was tired of building some other entity's brand. So I looked at what all these other young ladies were doing. And of course, I'm 36. But when I got on YouTube, it was only 3 years ago. But I looked at the truth is, I just felt so inadequate. It was really difficult for me to compare myself to all these young, beautiful women. But then I realized one thing that they weren't doing was they weren't being authentic. They were being really generic. And one thing I'm really good at is being authentic and speaking my truth, which I think a lot of people can resonate with. So I I just got on and I just created my script. I figured out, and I just did it all from my iPhone. And then I would just say the truth about Las Vegas and how things transact. And it just got easier every single day. I posted one long form video a week for a year and a half. And then I went over to Instagram to master that platform. And still to this day, even a year and a half ago, I've posted one reel a day, 5 stories a day. And I think just just being really clear with yourself on what you want and why, and not letting yourself away from what you have to do to get there.
There's so many things in what you just said. One is you were not comfortable to begin with. You didn't show up on YouTube thinking, I'm going to nail this, right? You were authentic, which is so important because people only want to connect with people who are human. And especially as AI evolves over time, people are going to continue to desire genuine human connection. And that is who you chose to be from the beginning. I love that you were just talking about the truth about how things are because people will search that. So it not only puts you in an SEO position, it's going to continue to keep you in AI SEO as that develops because you're probably talking about things that people are going to be searching the answers to. And you
Mhm.
were consistent. So when you talked about showing up as a high level realtor like an attorney before, you're being consistent and showing that you're going to be consistent in the way you serve them. And so even though that is not necessarily a part of the information you're showing, you are proving that you're a consistent long-term business owner and just not someone that's focusing on how I can make a sale today.
Yes, a couple things that help me stay consistent on social media. And consistency is the hardest thing for anybody because it takes a major conscious effort. Number one, if you say you're going to do something, you must do it. Because if you don't, that's that much less, you trust yourself that much less. You have these deposits of trust inside your trust bank. And if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, well, you're the only person who hears all your own lies. And you're the only person who knows that you could have, would have, but didn't. Secondly, showing up online, and this is where my authenticity shines. And this is where I encourage you guys to all do this because you will stand out. It is easy to not lie. It is hard to tell the truth. But if you think about it, the lie is complicated, the truth isn't. And trust is a new currency. So when you are truthful and you're honest in your integrity, you do this thing. So especially if you do it consistently. In my business, what I've experienced is it kind of goes back to Newton's first law. And Newton's law is an object that is in rest stays in rest, and then an object that is in motion stays in motion. But how do you get from rest to motion? Well, inertia, velocity, momentum. So let's talk about it. Inertia is an object's resistance to change. And imagine you're pushing a ball and you push the ball, but it stops. And then you push it again and it stops. But if you keep pushing it and you continue to push it, and now it's got this movement, but now you've hit velocity. Velocity is the speed of an object going in one specific direction. If you do that long enough, which this is the hardest part for people, this is where consistency comes in, then you hit momentum. Momentum is when that thing stays in motion. Once you hit momentum, and once you gain people's trust and you trust yourself and you're not lying to yourself or the public, you're going to stay there. And then your success will explode. It is physics, it is law, it is the way it works. If it worked for me, it'll work for everybody here.
Thank you. That's such a powerful way to look at it. And I've heard often by people who study science in that way and apply it to everything they do that once you get to about 60%, then it just continues to take off.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So just being the one that's consistent because most people are not is going to be a superpower that anyone can apply to what they're focused on doing and building their business. So let's talk about the results that you've achieved only being in the business for 8 years. What are some of the top wins or results that you've had in your real estate business?
So I have, I don't like talking about this, but I'll say it. Um, I joined an elite brokerage back in 2020 because I wanted to prove that I could. And I saw my competition. They were incredibly polished. Everybody wore suit and ties, and here I was in a t-shirt and jeans. And I was like, well, I guess I better, well, not t-shirt and jeans. I was like slacks and like a relaxed shirt. But, being in that environment really made me level up. In that same year, I became top 20 when there was 100 agents. And to give you perspective of the brokerage, well, no longer we, because I left the brokerage to do something different, which I can share later. They were out of 1,500 brokerages in Las Vegas. We were number 11 with only 100 agents. So I was number 20 in that brokerage. And then in 2021, I became top 10. I was actually number 7. And then in 2022, I became number 1 agent in that brokerage. And after that, after I had all this success and all the monetary gains, I started to ask that question: is this all there is? What else is there that I am missing? And what I missed was doing things for everybody else because I was just serving myself. You know, I made multiple 6 figures a year, tons of success, tons of rewards, but at the end of the day, I would go home kind of empty. And that's where the birth of this coaching program for other women came in. And I've had a lot of just so much good feelings about it, just being able to do something for someone else, even if I don't have a ton of gain from it. But, I ended up leaving that brokerage not long ago because I wanted to do something different with Real Broker. Real Broker is one of the largest brokerages in, I think, maybe the country. I think
Yeah,
right
we
now
are
it's
familiar with it. And
Right now they have 28,000 agents, and I put myself in a very uncomfortable position to reach that next level of growth. And I joined maybe less than 3 weeks ago, and I had somebody reach out asking me to be their sponsor. So I was thinking, like, okay, here it goes. So I'm looking forward to building a national team, creating my coaching program, and then just continuing with my own sales volume.
I love that. That is true multiplication and impact, and I'm so proud of that for you. Well, a lot of people on here are parents or no parents or have lives outside of real estate or would like to if they don't feel like they do right now. So, what are the things that you do, habits or rhythms that keep you grounded and focused on being a present wife and mom, as well as continuing to build your business and all of the businesses you're building right now?
Number one is I never stop being a mom. I have a 10-year-old, and I have to remember that one day he's going to marry a woman like me. And what kind of woman do I want him to marry? Not a bad one. So I have to mind my P's and Q's. I have to mind who I am and how I speak and show up. Second is I just stay humble. I have to remember I am just a man, and ego will keep you broke. Ego and pride will steal everything from you. So oftentimes, I read my Bible. I try to read it every single night. Um, I lean on my husband if I'm having a flare of arrogance, or if I'm having a moment of just I'm so too proud of what I'm doing. My husband will bring me back and just remind me, you are only human, and you are supposed to do these things for God first. It's not supposed to be for your gain. That really grounds me. That really helps me stay focused on what I'm trying to do and build. Because the moments where, I just thought I was all that in a bag of chips, I would stop doing the work because I thought, well, I'm too good to do the work. But if you always stay humble and you remember what the work is that got you there and why you're doing it, you're always going to keep going. Like that is that to me is the fuel for me to stay consistent. It is never, I try not to believe in my own press anymore.
That's really good. You mentioned to me when we were talking beforehand that you have a specific Bible verse that you have leaned on a lot. I don't know if you had an opportunity to pull it
I
up.
found it. I did find
Perfect.
it.
Do you mind sharing that with everyone?
It will. So it is. My screen froze. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Is Mark 11:24. Therefore, I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you will receive them and you will have them. I've leaned on that ever since the beginning of remembering to pray for what I want and to believe that I already have it. And, just tapping into your imagination. When you can put yourself in that place like you already have it and you can feel it, you raise your frequency and God will answer you. And I do believe full-heartedly that because I put myself like in that position where I already had it and I started to feel that I had it, I was brought to that place where I felt like I was already there, even if even if I wasn't quite there. But yeah, that one Bible verse has just helped me get to this place today.
Well, thank you for sharing that. God is the center of what we do at the Legacy Collaborative, and everyone has different beliefs, but we are God first in everything that we do. So I'm glad that that just happened to be a part of your journey. I didn't even know that before he spoke again today, although it makes so much sense when you think about your entire life journey and how he has perfectly designed you for this very moment and all of the ways that you're going to continue to serve people. Every successful entrepreneur has a superpower. When you think about your business, what would you say is your superpower?
I think I have two. And I also have a podcast. I don't know if I mentioned that. Why I actually just talked to one of the chief operators of this new guest who built Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy. And we're going to be podcasting October 7th. So I'm very excited about that. But the two things that are my strengths, I think, are authenticity and just asking very good quality, profound questions.
And your podcast is intentional improvement, right?
Intentional improvement.
And so you believe that asking those questions help you with everything that you're building.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I got better at asking questions over the years because, I realized the better the question, the greater the answer.
I love
And then,
that.
and then just being very authentic, just being true to yourself and being honest with the other person. There's a big thing too that I shifted into. I decided I'm going to be kind. I will not be nice. I think kindness, you're allowing growth for somebody and you're telling them the truth. When you're nice, you're actually doing the opposite. You will, I think it is a big disservice and sometimes you can cripple the other person.
I remember when you shared with me that you were making that decision, and I just love it so much. For those people who are on here and don't have those perfect expectations or boundaries or ways to contribute to people in a way that's kind and not nice, could you give an example of how they could show up in a relationship with a client in a kind way, but not a nice way?
So, kindness would, okay, when you're nice to somebody, when I'm nice to you, if you're nice to somebody, you'll tell them anything that they want to hear, even if you think they're having a bad day, or if you think that it's going to help them make the decision that they think that they want. That's nice, and oftentimes you're doing them a disservice, and you're going to cripple them. When you're kind, it is all about number one, the delivery and your tonality of how you're delivering that information. You are telling them the truth, regardless of how it's going to make them feel, but because it is the truth. And the reason why your tonality and your delivery is so important is because, you have to take control of the way you have to try to control the potential outcome based on the word, based on what you're delivering. But oftentimes, whenever I'm straight up with my clients and I'm being kind, not nice, they really appreciate it. And I think that's what separates, just some of the amateurs versus professionals in any field.
I agree with you. I actually think that it helps you come across as the true guide that you always chose you were going to be from the beginning of building this business. And they then respect you whenever there's anything challenging to navigate because you set yourself apart in the beginning of the relationship. That way, um, if you could go back to the beginning of everything that you built from the beginning of starting right at that turn when you started intentionally transforming your life, what is one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Don't overthink it. Just do it.
That's so good. Don't
That
don't overthink it.
and don't overthink it because you'll think yourself out of your next move. You'll think yourself out of the life you're going to build. You'll think yourself out of the thing that you are trying to bring to that person who needs to hear it. And when I was building, and there was never a moment when I wasn't scared, and even going into this next big project, I'm working on the launch of this program, and I keep thinking, is this thing going to even work? Who would want to learn from me? I have all these thoughts, but whenever I start to overthink like that, I go back to 12-year-old Erica and I think about the woman that she'd be so proud to see. And I hold on to that. I hold on to 12-year-old me, and I think about all those other 12-year-old girls who need the role model that I want to show up as. And it's true, you know, there's a lot of different role models out there, but not all of them are good. And so if you can choose to be that one good one that they can look up to, I think you should just do it.
That's so great. Well, I know that you have a specific lead magnet that you've been extremely excited about. So I'll make sure that we have everyone's email addresses on here so that we can get that shared with anyone, unless you have an easy way to drop it in the chat. If you don't, we'll work on that later. I'm just excited for them to be able to have one little nugget like that from you to build their business, because I've seen how many people are getting leads just from applying that one thing, which is amazing. And I would love to open it up for anybody to ask Erica questions. I know you guys have been waiting patiently, and we have about 10 to 12 minutes for you guys to ask anything that you would like. So let's do questions first, and then write down your top ahas so that you are prepared to share those so that she can hear the impact that she's made as she spent time with us today. What are your questions for her? You can just come off mute, Pamela.
Okay. First of all, you have a very impressive story, so I feel like it
You.
also takes some kind of courage to put it all out there. So thank you for doing that in this setting. I also believe that you're in one of the most difficult markets because it is a very much keeping up with the Joneses environment. So saying that you're able to stay true to yourself and that you come from an authentic place, I believe it, but it also comes with effort. It has to, because it is so easy to get wrapped up in that environment. So going into how you've been able to live authentically and present yourself authentically in social media, what would you say to yourself if you would have to get started again? Because I'm a quite a perfectionist. Like literally, I didn't have my camera on because I'm wearing a t-shirt.
You look great though. You look great.
So that's the silly thing that keeps me off getting on social media, right? So what would you suggest to overcome that kind of things, or what would you say to yourself if you would have to start over?
Nobody wants to see perfect fake you. They want to see real you because they want to know that you're just like them. And here's the thing is you are human just like the rest of us, and you will build a stronger connection with a person when they know that you're not perfect. The people that paint the picture that their life is perfect and their marriage is perfect and all these things are perfect, they're usually the messiest, and we know that. And if you want to build trust fast with your audience, because trust is the new currency, show up as you are. You know, the other day, so I wake up at 4 to get to the gym by like 4:30, and the other day I didn't really look great. You know, I had my hair in a big messy bun, and I had bags under my eyes and everything, and I still just took a video and said to people, I had, I ate too much pasta, and so now I'm fluffy and my bags are big, but oh well, here I am, and let's get it in. And people, and you have to create that evidence for yourself too. Like, when you post that and you see people's reactions, you see the hearts, you see that they're watching your every single story. Like I said, post 3 to 5 stories a day. You see the same people returning and the engagement and how they're commenting. That will help you show up even more. So I think that you have to be able to collect that evidence for yourself. But I'm telling you right now, when you are showing up as yourself and you're not perfect and you show up messy, people are gonna relate to you faster. You'll get to that velocity and momentum faster.
Okay, thank you. I'm leaving my camera on.
Hey, you look great, girl. You look good. Leave it on.
You. So I'm in the beginning of doing like YouTube for lead gen and just to kind of become an area expert. What social media, and I apologize because I jumped on a little bit late, so you may have covered this, but like what social media strategies did you get the most out of as far as conversion? Like what seemed to, and I love the authenticity. I'm a big fan of that too. But as far as like platforms and, what do you think really was the thing that hit the most?
So the content that did the best for me, that got me the most phone calls and the most conversions, was pros and cons and best things in your area versus worst things. And people like to know that you're not willing to just show the good stuff, that you're willing to talk about the bad. Some of my best performing videos are, without steering, because that's always like the line we dance on, is areas I would not live in. And then I tell why. I say why I won't live here, and I just talk about myself. But people like that. They like that you're being real about the areas that you don't like. I even took my, one of my best performing videos that got me a phone call is when I was taking my dog, Vader. He's one of my Great Danes, for a walk, and I ended up slipping in mud. And I told my editor, I was like, don't edit that out, just leave it, because what person hasn't freaking slipped? And, it got the most engagement. It got the most phone calls, and it was actually one of the most replayed. You just do it. Just do it, and don't apologize for who you are and how you are and why you are. That is it. Your people will find you, and the ones who don't like you, they won't contact you anyways, and that's fine.
I love it.
So good. All right, one more question. Then all of you who are just excited to share with her what you got from this, hold your horses, because you'll get to rattle those off as well. So one more person with a question. Maybe the person that thinks you have one, but you've been too shy to unmute. This is your time. She's all about authenticity and helping you. So give her the opportunity to be a blessing.
Okay, I have one. So when you were talking about choosing who you want to be in business with instead of allowing people to choose you, how do you clearly communicate in the beginning of your relationship with a potential client, what your values are and what your boundaries are?
I think a lot of it has to do with the way you talk with them in the beginning. With how social media works is you make content for your client avatar, which is the lead magnet that I created. And it basically, if you do it correctly, you're going to outline exactly who you're going to talk to and why. And you create content just for them. And then they're going to text you or they're going to email you. I can't tell you, I have hundreds of DMs of people saying, Erica, love your content, want to work with you. I'm looking to buy XYZ house. Like, they reach out to me. And, unfortunately, I do fire some people, but sometimes they may not align with me because they don't respect my marriage. They use language that I don't align with. A lot of it does, you set the expectation on the very first phone call with that person. So whenever I talk with somebody, I kind of, I say, hey, so we were talking on Instagram, and the way I'm talking to you right now is the exact same way I would speak to them over the phone. Hey, so we were talking on Instagram about you looking to buy a home, just calling to see what your parameters are and get an idea of what you're looking for. That's it. I speak with that same tone. There's no up inflection. There's no incredible excitement. It is flat. I speak like an attorney. What do you need and how can I help you? That is it. When you talk with them like that, you're setting yourself as the authority figure. When you want to understand their parameters and why and where, they're going to trust you. So it is as easy as that. And if you ever have to go back to think, how can I talk like an attorney? When you think of an attorney, they're professionals at law, and they're usually well respected unless they're like completely incompetent. You want to show up like that. The very first phone call is the way the relationship will be over the lifetime of that relationship.
That's so good. Thank you. Okay, now everyone who was waiting for your chance, here is your opportunity to show her what stood out to you or what your top takeaways were that you're going to apply for yourself or that reminded you that you can do this. And anyway, we're just so grateful. So everyone come off mute and share the top takeaways that you have or what you're thankful for Erica.
Thanks for sharing your story, Erica. This is really, really awesome. I love the whole story, but I love some of the one-liners that you mentioned. So I had my favorite was burn that boat, burning that boat, leaving yourself. The only option is to be successful and, to also already live your life as though as such you're in the position that you're striving to be in. So that was awesome. Leaving your old life behind so that you can be that person. That was huge to me too. And I loved when you mentioned how your brain is like a parachute and it's going to operate the best when it's fully open. So those are my top takeaways. Yeah.
I love
Amongst
that.
a few other things, but thank you so much for sharing all your story. And yeah, I can't wait to see your continued success and appreciate your time and being with us today.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing how my camera is horrible. That's why I usually stay off camera. I just get no light situations. But I really appreciate you sharing how, have a harder time taking in information and how it took you some time to just accept that about yourself and to work around that and the courage that it takes to, to say, okay, this is my situation. How I'm not going to let that be a crutch or anything like that. So thank you for sharing that. I too struggle with that. And, once I've got it, but it takes me a minute to get it. And I just, it feels good to know that I'm not the only one out there that you can still be just as successful, even if you do have a hard time getting it at first. And so there's hope for us all. Thank you so much for sharing.
I love that, Tiffany. And I'll say right now, the most successful people are not smarter than us. They just move faster than us. It's all about speed. You don't have to be the smartest.
So good. Who else?
For me, it was definitely being kind over nice. I've grown up kind of with that people pleaser mindset, and it's something I'm definitely being delivered from with a lot of hard work and coaching. But that was really great for me. And then also, I think it really hit home for me just because of the way that I grew up of thinking about the 12-year-old version of yourself and the role model that that girl needs. So that was just a perspective shift for me. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I mean, I loved everything that you said. I love that you overcame everything, but I think the biggest thing that kind of hit me was when you mentioned, thinking back on 12-year-old you and being like, are you the woman that you would want 12-year-old you to look up to, basically? You know what I'm saying? And like becoming that person. And I think that was just like extremely inspiring. So that's what I took away from it.
Thank you for coming on.
So I totally forgot to mention this, and I think I will mention it. One of the things that helped me was getting in the right rooms, going to the events. If somebody has an event where you believe it's going to get you to that next unlock, make sure that you put yourself in that room because you're putting yourself in that environment. And when you do that, not only do you condense time, but you collapse it. So you always have to ask yourself, how can you condense and collapse time for yourself to get to that next person that you want to evolve to faster and more efficiently? Sandra is absolutely a stellar person. She's a, very intelligent woman and she knows a lot of information. I think, if, she's putting together an event and I wish I could attend, but that room, to be in the room that she's going to create, I really do think is going to do that for you guys. So I just think that whatever Sandra's putting together, the people that she brings, the people that she has speaking, it's going to get you that next unlock.
Thank you for saying that. I am excited that we have the very first blueprint coming up, and I'm excited for you to be able to come to a future one, and so grateful to be in an accountability group with you because of the room that we met in together, right? So that just continues to happen, and I know these people are going to choose to be in rooms and also to choose to create rooms for other people as they continue to multiply their impact because of listening to you today. And Treva wrote in the messages, owning your truth, even the parts that you don't like, was something that inspired her. So Thank you for that. We are so grateful for you to be here, and just thank you for the gift that you are and how authentic you are. And I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to connect and excited about continuing to do things together. Don't forget to follow her podcast. That is the Intentional Improvement Podcast. And also don't forget about her book. Slaying, is it Slaying Vegas or Slaying Las Vegas, Erica?
Playing big.
Slaying Vegas. Perfect. And we will definitely have her back in the future. She's kind of stuck with me now since we are in an accountability group together, as all of you know well what that looks like when you get stuck with me. So we're just really grateful to have you be a part of this and excited to continue to support you in all of the ways that you're going to make the world a better place because of who you are.
Thank you. Well, it was an absolute pleasure to talk with you guys. I'm really glad that you had some takeaways, and I just want you to know that the life that you want is just one decision away. You just have to do it. And the work is really it's not scary. It's only scary if you tell yourself it is. And if you want to do something, there's absolutely nothing stopping you except yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you so much. And we'll get you a link to everything sent out so that you'll have it in one place as well. Thank you for being here.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
See ya.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.